Joyce Dixon, and I'm a freelance historian and genealogist on contract with the Department of Archives and History. I retired from Archives and History in 2020, and since then I've come back to do genealogy workshops for them and other projects they have going on. Because you know you're retired, so you got to keep stay busy, right? So African American genealogy begins the workshop using resources located at the Department of Archives and History. So we want you to know that these records we're looking at today, you can't come here and look for them. So you don't have to run from county to county, look for county records, unless you just want to, unless they're at a certain time period, maybe 1940 or something like that. And when the archive doesn't have them, then you might want to contact the county courthouse. But the early records from the courthouses, majority of them, and I'm going to say 90, maybe 95% of them are going to be here. So this is like one stop. Okay. And you can also get the census record and all the other records here. This is my 3-generation picture gallery. And I always do this because I want you to think about all the pictures you have at home that are not identified. And I've come across quite a few in my family that are not identified. And this really is a chore. You have a photograph and it's an older relative, but there's no one who can identify that record. So you have records, you have pictures, you know, get you a number 4 pencil and write on the back of it. Don't use an ink pen though, because ink spreads. Over the years, that's why you go to the archives and a lot of libraries, they want us to use the ink pen because one stray mark over the years the ink was spread out through the paper. You see paper towel and you drop water on paper towel and it spreads out. So ink does the same thing. So be careful when you use a pen in a book or on your records, because years later you're gonna watch, why is this big blotch here? Because that ink is spread. So this is my children's grandmother, Maybe Dixon. And she was quite a stylish woman. She passed like 2 years ago. And this is her mother, Doja Dan Walker. You see what Maybe did from the picture. And then this is the older picture of Quilly Dampier, which is Maybe's mother. And my daughter used to wonder where did I get that name from, Quilly? Mom, why are you giving that name? Nobody can pronounce it. I said, it's because it's your great-great-grandmother's name. So you keep those names in the family. So a lot of times you wonder, where do these names come from? They're coming from the family, which is a good way to keep the history going. So when you get started, you always start, you're going to start at home. And a lot of you have a home, just haven't even thought about a new method for genealogy. Your birth records, deaths, marriage records, Bible records. And when you look at the Bible records, there are two types of Bible records you should be aware of. You have Bible records in the Old Bible, and it's written in several different hands. You can tell they're written in several different time periods. Or, and sometimes you may have a Bible record that's written in the same hand, and it may be a new Bible. Okay? So those are the ones you have to look out for, because they may not be as accurate as the older Bible. Because sometimes people buy, and I've seen it happen, people buy a new Bible, and they got the section in there where you fill it in, and they'll fill it in from memory. And not from the actual event. Obituaries. I keep my obituaries. My poor husband. It's a big old case. And I say, bring my obituary, and they like, here she go again. I would take pictures of it, send to my family members. I would let them have the actual one, because you won't get it back. So make them a copy. Family stories, all those family stories that your family told you and you got so sick and tired of hearing the same thing over and over again, and now they passed on, and you didn't write it down, and that is information lost. So even though you get tired of hearing it, write it down, listen, and engage in the conversation, and because the more you engage in it, the more they are taught. School records. The Department of Archives and History has a large selection of eligible children's school records. And I see the word eligible because you didn't necessarily have to go to school, it's that you were eligible to go to school. That's why it says eligible children records. So if you're at a certain age, then you are listed on their record because the state needs these records to allot different money to the school district. So they try to get all the children listed whether they were in school or not, because they were of age to go to school. Deed records. Prior to the end of slavery, the enslaved people were property. So a deed record is property. So if someone owns me, I'm their property. So they may have a deed record for me, right? Okay. Will, probate, and other court records. If you pass away, you want to make sure you have a will record, so that the chair will go to the person you want to go to, right? So it won't go to probate and people fussing about, I want this, I want that. So look at doing genealogy. A lot of the enslaved people were listed in the wills and the probate records because they said, oh, I want this person to go to my son, and they called him by name, and then it was a big allotment. Then they would have to inventory the estate. So a lot of times in the inventory records, they're going to list all the enslaved persons that person owns, and a lot of times they're going to list them by name and sometimes by description. So any record that shows property, you want to look at that. You know, any kind of property, you want to look at that record. And you got to have the quest to find those lost ancestors. And it's not an easy job. I'm sure you all know that. It can be tedious. Sometimes you just want to pull out your hair. That's why I probably have a wig on today. Because there are some ancestors that you just cannot find, but you just put them on the back burner and find you another route. And then later on you come back to it. You like, and I like this. Sometimes I'm doing genealogy in the middle of the night. And I'm thinking, man, I look at this record right here. And, you know, my husband used to be there, so he used to be talking about this stuff in my sleep and stuff. I'm in that brushing and he's like, did I look at that deed record? I should have gone to the next hymn. So that's what it stays in your mind all the time. And you have some family members who want to help. You have family who don't want to help. And that's perfectly fine. You just don't let anybody get you off your track. So that's why I said genealogy is personal. This is my employer right here. I kind of paid for a little bit. So when you're asking family members about records, sometimes they're not going to want to answer your question. Because they'll tell you sometimes that's their business. And it is their business. It's really y'all's business because you're all the same family. So if one person don't answer the question, just ask the next person. Because if one person knows, I guarantee another person knows. Am I blocking y'all view? Can you all see around me? Okay. So African Americans are not listed on the 1820 to 1860 Mississippi Federal Census records unless they were free person of color. And I stipulate Mississippi because some states were not slaveholding states. So you have to be sure that the person you're looking for in these records were actually in a slaveholding state. So notice that the first federal census was taken in 1790. Mississippi now became a state in 1817. So after the first federal census was not taken in 1820. So the census not every 10 years.
You said the first federal census was when?
The first federal census was taken in 1790. Okay. But for Mississippi, the first federal census will be 1820. So when I was talking about earlier, you know what county you're coming from? You need to know what date that county was formed. You know, so if you're looking for Lee County, like, well, I know they were Lee County, because that's where the former enslaved people lived, but Lee County wasn't formed in 1866. Lincoln wasn't formed in 1870. And there are some that formed after 1900. So you have to find the parent county, and there are several great books, even almanacs, that will show you when the county was formed. So I'm from Calhoun County. I'm from the big town of Barton, the sweet potato capital of the world. And that's our only claim to fame, so I just keep saying it every time I go somewhere. I'm from Barton, the sweet potato capital. But the courthouse in Pittsburgh burned in 1922. Legend has it that it was set on fire because someone was on trial, and he said, before I go to jail, the courthouse will burn. So then what happened?
It burned.
The courthouse burned. I'm not saying he did it. I'm just saying it so happened the courthouse burned before the trial was over. So the courthouse, I live in Barton. The courthouse is in Pittsburgh. Now Pittsburgh is a roundabout way to go. So it's through the woods, through the valley, down the hill. But in the next county over, which is Chickasaw County, Boardman and Chickasaw County are all on Highway 8. It's just a straight shot. And for years I was telling everybody, go to the closest courthouse, go to the closest courthouse. I wasn't following my own advice. So I couldn't find it in Calhoun County, but I knew mine from Calhoun County, but that's what y'all always said. So one day I'm just driving from Baltimore and I go to Houston, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's a courthouse. 10 miles away. It's a lot farther from Pittsburgh, and it's a straight shot. So I me stopping there, go over to the courthouse, and I got to go in and, verify for myself, Found out my parents were found married in Chickasaw County, not Calhoun County. My grandparents were married in Chickasaw County, not Calhoun County. Then my dad's folks were in Chickasaw County, not Clay County. Then my dad folks, my mom folks are semi-related. But it's all about genealogy anyway, though, right? It's like, oh, so my mom used to say, Joyce, and stop looking before you find out I'm making your dad. They kind of third cousins down the line. I didn't tell her. I think she already knew. That's why she told me to stop. So you can't find it in your courthouse, then go to the next closest courthouse. Because people tend to go to the easiest route, right? So if you're on 8, it's always short, this is always a straight line, right? You see that straight line from Barton to Houston? You can't get lost. Even though sometimes I kind of get lost trying to go around Houston. It is not very big. Like I said, I'm a genealogist. You just like stuff doesn't mean anything in my brain. So the last census release, last federal census release is 1950. Because the census release 72 years from the time it was taken. So the next census is at least whatever 72 years is from now. So that's why they encourage you when you're doing the census record, always fill it out. Because probably by the time it's released, most people are deceased. So you're not worried about these privacy issues and everything.
Can you say that one more time? I want to make sure I understood it.
Okay, so the census takes every 10 years.
All right.
The actual information, the name part, this part right here, is only 72 years from the year it's taken. So if I'm 60 something now, and I'm going to do the next census, I'm not going to worry about what happened because it's going to be 72 years, and I doubt I'll see it being 72 years. So that's why they encourage you to tell to answer the questions, because a lot of times people are afraid of this government interference as they saw it. Because why is the government asking these questions? Who live in my household? And all these type of questions. Because there's always this lingering fear of what the government might do. So that's why they say, go ahead and you can answer the question, because by the time it's released, you've been going on to glory. Probably. But that's not guaranteed, but probably. So on the 1950 census, I found my grandfather and my grandmother. And I can't throw this up there, I'm sorry. But I just want to show you the route to go. So keep in mind that this is taken every 10 years, and you find someone, don't just skip. Just say, oh, I found them in 1950. So, and they were born, they were 50 years old, I'm going to go to the 1900 census. So you skipped all these other years and all that information. Because it's more than the age, it's all the questions they ask on that census report, because every census is different. They're not the same questions. So if you skip 40 years of information, because the census 1850 say, 1950 say you were born in 1900, and you went to 1900, and they weren't there because they may have been born in a different month, and they're not sure to 1910. Okay? And all the other questions in between that.
When did you feel the first one was done, the census?
For Mississippi? First in Mississippi is 1820. Right, but African Americans are listed on the census 1870 because that's the first census released after the Emancipation Proclamation and the end of the Civil War. Right? Okay.
So this 1950 will be the last one that's been released?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So you may find African Americans in the census, in the prior census record from 1820 to 1860, if they were a free person of color. And on the census it'll say, you find African American, it's going to say free person of color. Because the census asks, are you a free Pole? So the enslaved person is not a free Pole. Understand? Because they actually proper. So you see, I'm going to go all the way down. And so that's my grandmother in 1940, because by 1950, my grandfather is deceased. And 1940, he is head of household. You know, says the other right there. If you're looking at Ancestry, they'll give you several different things. You can look at the printed transcribed version, and you can also look at the actual transcript. So I put this is I want you to look at the actual transcript. That's the handwritten part. Because when you transcribe any document, you may leave out some words. You may misspell some words. Okay? And actually sometimes on the census, names are going to be spelled differently than sometimes what we spell as now. So there's John and Ellen in 1930. And that is a grown-up part of John and Ellen. Those are my dad's relatives. 1920, you see I'm not skipping any years. That's the transcribed version of it. They see it over in Clay County. In 1910, John is a child, and he's in his dad's household. His name, John Calhoun, was the person we saw earlier. And now he's in our house of Bias Cole. And Bias is John's daddy. His actual name is John Bias. So there is no 1890 census. There was a fire in the holding facility. So the 1890 census burned. Not in Mississippi, where the actual federal census was held at. So that's just a scene from the actual burning of those records. The 1880 census is interesting. Let me go back. Let me go to here. Because you see his name was Coleman. My grandmother's name was Sanders. In 1870, I cannot find Shed Sanders. I looked and looked and looked, y'all, I could not find him. And I remembered my grandmother saying, well, you know, that's not their real name. You know, that little tidbit isn't stuck in my brain. So I did a search looking for Shed. I'm like, so was Shed? What that name used for Shed? Shadrach? Those names from the Bible, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of our uneducated said he used names from the Bible. So I couldn't find them in 1870, because in 1870, he was Shadrach Billups. Mm-hmm. And they were in Alabama. But if my father's folks in Clay County, and Clay County is formed from parts of Lowndes County, and you go across it, and you right there at the county, at the state line. They right there over here in Alabama. It says, so when one of the records said that where your ancestors, where your parents from, it said Alabama. And so this was my link to Alabama. And a lot of times we find people change their names for several different reasons. So this is the first census after the Civil War. So a lot of African Americans changed their name because they didn't want the enslaved person's name. A lot of times they found someone they liked, who was nice to them, and they changed their name within their name. And a lot of people were afraid that this new freedom was something temporary. So they changed their name so they couldn't be found.
And it was temporary, wasn't it?
That's another whole different subject. Okay. So they changed their name so they couldn't be found. And also, we find even in the 30s and 40s, even up to the 50s and 60s, you find sharecroppers who would change their name. Because remember, we didn't have Social Security then. So a lot of times they changed their name because they had signed this contract to work on this land. And I'm sure everyone knows that was really wasn't favorable for the person who signed the contract. So to get out of that contract, they would change their name and move somewhere else. But majority of the time, they would keep their first name. So if you look for someone, you can't find them by their last name. Try looking for them by the first name. If you do, especially if you're doing Ancestry, put in a name, put in one of the children's names, and put their race, how old they would be, and all this kind of stuff. And just use that star, and they're gonna put up all the people with that name. And then you can narrow it down by the county. So that's where I found Shadrach Phillips. Because I couldn't find Shed. I'm like, Shed, Shadrach. So Shadrach came up. And when I pulled Shadrach, every child in the household was there. Even Shadrach Jr., he was 10 years old. He was born in 1870. So you got to think of the reasons why the name may have changed. And sometimes the spelling will change because people are like, oh, my name is Green, and we have an E on our name, and they are Green. They just have an N. So we're different people. Not so fast. That's not always true. Majority of the time, it's not true. Just because the name is spelled differently, it does not mean that you're not related to each other. It's also where you say the word. So for an example, my youngest child name was Quilly, Qully. For the longest time, we were getting records from the school that said Tully Dixon is Qully. Willie Dixon. Our names just sounded like Quilly, but they couldn't spell Quilly. So they wrote that, they close their finger. She's like, Mom, this is not my name. I said, doesn't matter. I go to the school and have them change it back out. But it's what you hear a lot of times. So you hear vowels. That's like in the sound base, which is an indexing system, Ancestry, and a lot of different places use. They spell the word by how it sounds, the index how it sounds. So if you got an A and an E and an A, and an O and a vowel and a word, you don't hear those words. You hear the consonants, and you don't hear a double consonant, right? So you hear one of them. So in the sound, it eliminates all the vowels, and it eliminates a double consonant. So you get the same. That way you find someone, even though you don't have your spelling of it. Now, there's no such thing as a correct spelling of it. Your real spelling of it. Okay. So I tell you that. So don't get hung up on how the name is spelled. Because I hear one thing, you hear something else. If you ask me what's my name, I said Lawson, and I get paperwork to my house that says Joyce Larson. Like, oh, now I'm a Larson. I said, my husband, you think you're a Larson? So we got married, his birth certificate had to be changed. Because his birth certificate said Royal Lawson. His name is Roy Lady. So we had to go get it changed before we got married to put his proper name. And all these records, nothing said Royal, but the birth certificate said Royal Lawson. So as I don't know if you can see it, but here's the notice the name change. In 1870 to 1880. So we're looking out for those different spellings. So if you can't find your person, look for the children by their name. So the 1850 census, you can't, like I said, you can find some African Americans on it in 1860, 40 and 30, but they have to be a free person. Because they are a free poll now. So sometimes they're listed. A lot of times they're not listed because a lot of African Americans didn't know what the census names were, and so they did not want their name listed. So not only does the state have federal records, federal census records, they also have state census records. So the latest state census record they have is 1880. And the one thing about 1880, you have the 1880 federal census record, you have the 1880 state census record, you have the 1880 eligible children record. For 1880, you got some good records going there. You can't find them one way, you find them another way. So eligible children, like I was talking about before, that means you were of school age. But as any record is done, it's only as good as the person who understood what the assignment was, right? So in my case, my mother and father, my older sister, are on the 1960 eligible children's school record. But they're not eligible children, they're a married couple with a 1 year old. But the person who did the inventory said, okay, so she's 20, he's 18, and she's 1. So they didn't know, they just wrote everybody's name down. So they didn't count for the other children go, but as a genealogist, I'm glad they made their mistakes. So their mistakes is our betterment doing our genealogy search. So just because you think, okay, they're not elder children school age, don't skip that record. Look at it anyway. So all the state census records, especially the Interior Archives, they're microfilmed. They used to have the big binder, you pull them out, and you would get book brought on your clothes, and they would fall apart in your hand. And of course, that's not a way of preservation. So archive job is to preserve the records. So they had them all microfilmed. And state also elder children records. When you look at elder children records, I'm elder children, I'm still in the state. I get so ahead of myself sometimes. You can just go to the next screen. So the state census records. When you go to the catalog, and I encourage each one to go in the catalog, and you type in series 100, it's going to give you this list. It's going to give you a list of every county that has 1880 census. The 1880 state census records started in 1818.
What did you go to? Go to where?
When you go into the archives.
Okay.
Okay. If you go to the catalog, online, you can do it online. You don't have to go in the archives. You can do it online. Let's go to our website, and when you get to the catalog, type in series 100. And when you type in series 100, the entire list of state census records is going to pop up. And like it's in blue here, you can't tell what's in blue. When you click on the blue, blue means action. In my mind, blue means action. So if you click on it, it's going to pop up and show you what census record they have, what state census record they have for that county. So you don't have to go through all of them. So I think the earliest one I've seen for state census record African American went on is 1866. So that's the latest one after the Emancipation and the 13th Amendment. And you have to keep both of those in mind, because what one didn't do, because the Emancipation Proclamation only freed the slaves in the slaveholding states that seceded from the Union. The others were not free. So it was done January 1st, 1863. But it was only for those states that had seceded from the Union. That's the school my big kind of bargain. That's how my mom went to school of bargain. So let's talk elder children records. So I said, well, what are elder children records? And why are they compiled? This is the process used by the state to count the children that were school age so the state could distribute money to the schools. So Webster's definition is, for elder children, the elder says, that can be educated or trained. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're in school, but they're of that age. I see people writing. Everyone who writes. Okay. If I need to go back, just say go back. I said family stories. Your older relatives are a genealogy ambassadors. They are filled with information that is not recorded on paper. They know things that is not of a state record or a county record or anything like that. And they know records, even though it may be official on the paper somewhere else, they know the tea. And so sometimes, even though one record says something else, you really need that one person who knows the real truth. Because so sometimes what's written down, not actually, it's a fact, right? So we just pretty it up some, but as those older ancestors, older relatives, they know so. And sometimes they tell you, that's not your business. I know from experience. So midwife records, they were common to the 18th up to the 1960s. Now, why do we need midwife records? Because Mississippi did not keep state or federal birth or death records until November 1912. So prior to that date, you have to find another way to find information that you need. Okay? So even though and in some instances, people were born in the 40s, but they were birthed by a midwife. Sometimes they didn't have a birth record. So my dad was born in 1942. When he tried to get his Social Security, he realized he didn't have a birth certificate. So they had the Department of Health made him one. They give you a form to fill out, and you have it certified, and then they will make you a new birth certificate. Now, however, anytime you look at a record that's formed prior to the date, you need to think about it twice. Okay, how accurate is this record? Let me tell you why. Because my father was born in 1942, and his only aunt that was living lived up in Manatee. So he's down here in Jackson. He didn't want to go drive to Manatee. So he went across the street to the neighbor, and she wrote down that she was his auntie. And I'm like, she is not your auntie. Mind your business. But he got his record and he got his Social Security. So you have a record made up later. You need to look at that record and see, question yourself, oh, is this record accurate? Don't start no fights now. Just ask the question, you know. If you get that ting in your head, you're like, I need to think about that.
Where would you find midwife records?
Okay, so some midwife records are here.
Okay.
The majority of the midwife records at the Department of Health. That's what they were supposed to turn in the Department of Health. So sometimes they didn't turn them in because they feel like those are their records. Just like, you know, if you're in an organization or sometimes you're in a church and the secretary has the records. And when they leave, the records leave. Because those are their records. Same thing. Yeah.
They go to the midwife too. Sometimes my great grandmother was a midwife.
Mm-hmm.
You could have people come to the house and say, "Miss Sweet, when was that on?"
So I know I myself was not born in a hospital. I was born in a truck. That's how people say. They didn't get there in time. And when they got there, they were fussing over who's going to go in. So my dad, my granddad, and my mom. So they were talking, and mom just, she's like, there she is. My granddad said, well, it's a gal, pick up. And they just went in him. They took me on into the hospital, even though I was going outside. In the parking lot. I hit my head. Now I tell you, that counts my personality today. You know, so it's actually not my fault. It's my parents' fault. They be following on that in a dirt truck. So cemetery records. If you don't have a death record, sometimes you can just look at a cemetery record. Cemetery records are only as good as the person who verified the information. A lot of cemetery records are not verified. Tombstones are not verified. They recall when that person died. You know, it was summertime, and we had just come out of the field, so that was like around September, October. And you know, so late in the month, you know, June would have died that day, during that time period. So it was at this date. It was several years earlier. Now, I asked my mother one time, I said, Mom, when did my great granddaddy die? She said he died in the 60s. So that's why I carried the conversation. I asked my dad. I said, Dad, you didn't know your great granddad? He said, yeah, I knew it. I'm like, well, hold up now. He said, no, I didn't. He said, I didn't know him. He was already dead. Mama said he died in the 60s. My dad said he would die while I was born. Dad was born in 42. So I hurried up to the archives. I could hardly wait. Get on that death index. Found out he died in 1941. He fell in a fire and died from the burns because they didn't take him to the hospital. So he died from that. But I know now that when he died, and it wasn't in the 60s, it was 1941. So you have to be listening when these folks be saying stuff to you. That wait a minute, that's a conflict going on there. Sure enough.
So cemetery records are kept here also rather than in the county?
Cemetery records are personal records.
Oh, personal.
It's just like that there are some records here. Archives has a slew of cemetery records.
Okay.
Right. So it's like when you die and you go to the funeral home. The funeral homes are regulated through the state. However, their records are their personal records. So they decide that they're going to get rid of all these ledgers of records as their property, and they can. So many cemeteries funeral homes all the time, they will burn the records, they need space. Because remember, back here, we're using paper records. And can you imagine all those books and take no space? So they may burn those records because they're their records. They have nothing to do with the regulation of the state. The regulation is they're making sure that everything is done properly. The actual records belong to them. So funeral homes, cemetery records, yes ma'am.
What about the newspaper? Can you get that information from them? Do they keep good records?
Newspapers that's a business. So the archives does try to collect every newspaper published in the state. And when I was a newspaper librarian back in 1980s, we had the hard copies of nearly every newspaper, and we would microfilm them. And then after they were microfilmed, they would burn the hard copy because they take up so much room. Now you can contact the newspapers and see what have they archived, or you can come here and see look on the records. But the majority of the time, and during this time period of the 50s and the 60s and prior to that date, not many African Americans are listed because a lot of times you have to pay to have these obituary things written in paper. And it was a time period when during Jim Crow and all this, it was not important enough to put in paper. Now unless you was someone who was very affluent in the community, then there may be a one line, Mr. John Roberts, old Negro, something that died so day. Okay. One thing about genealogy is you can't be emotional about it. That was the hardest part for me to get over. You just want the facts. You can't change history, right? Because it's history. All you do is just the facts. So we have to get past the emotional aspect of it. Especially when you're getting past that you're property. Then once you get past that, then you'll start finding things. But don't be afraid of any records you find. So this is Pine Grove Cemetery. See how nice and neat it is? That's the exception to the rule. A lot of cemeteries are so overgrown that you need on your snake bite boots and everything else to go out there. Okay? And so a lot of these cemeteries are on private property. So just because you going down the road and you see a cemetery does not give you the right to go out to the cemetery, because you may be trespassing. So you need to get the person's permission before you go out there, okay? Death records, like I said, Mississippi started keeping death records in November 1912. And over the years, they've asked more and more questions. Just like the census, right? They ask more and more questions. And Mississippi Department of Archives and History has death records from November 1912 to 1943. Anything after that, you have to go to the Department of Vital Records and order a copy of it.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Okay, the Archives has death records from November 1912 to 1943. There are no official death records prior to that date. And those I keep saying official, okay? Because every county sometimes will keep their own records. But they're not official state records, they're county records. And you won't know if your county has these records, so you actually go and search for them.
What happens after 1943?
They kept it from Hill by the records. So you have to go to them and get your copy of it. And not every death is reported. Okay? But just like you know someone died, if it wasn't reported, then it's not going to be recorded. Just like birth records, if it's not reported, it's not going to be a birth certificate. So these are, this is a obituary record. Remember things back on. But I keep declaring I can see without my playing song. Then we are the 16. So this, on this side, this is the obituary for Lurk and Daisy Cooley Gunner. She was born January 7, 1913, to Lady Lewis and Ezra Cooley. And part of his life, September 6, 26, in Clarksdale. Even though we were all from Chickasaw County. And we all know Clarksdale is not Chickasaw County. So she has 7 children, and one of those children, my grandmother, Mary D. Conner. Mary D. Conner was born July 28, 1926. Y'all seen that age range right there? My great-grandmother was born in 1913. My grandmother was born in 1926.
Wait now, she was 14.
13.
My grandmother was, Laura, I'm sorry, my grandmother was 11 when she got married. My grandmother, Laura, had several children, but somebody during this time period, the family said she was mentally ill. So they sent her to Whitfield. Another great source of information you look for your ancestors. Because mental illness is just that, what? An illness, right? So I put no stigma on any type of record. I'm going to look for it. I don't care if he was born on a tree, I want to find out about it. So when my grandmother died, her husband, I'm sorry, she went to Whitfield. Her husband had a new kind of like wife, okay? And she already had several children herself. She had about 6 children herself. So they were living in poverty. So as the children were getting older, in their teens and whatever, and close to teens, they were being married off because they simply could not afford to feed them. So that's how my grandmother being just like only like 12 years older when she got married. And so my grandmother, Mary Lee had 16 children. My mom was her first child. And my mom was born in 1940. And as you can see, she left quite a list of children left. And these is just a number of grandchildren. If we had to list everyone's name on there, we'd have a whole book of children. I say keep your obituaries, make copies, don't relinquish your original. So we also, another place to find records is the hospital records. Now, the archives has the records from Mad Heritage Hospital, It's in Meridian. These records used to be open records, but now they're not, because as things go, we talk about HIPAA laws, right? So, but you can search records or ask the archive librarian, do a written request and ask them to search the record for you. If it's a closed record, ask them, how can I get access to the record? Don't just stop it, it's a closed record. Say, okay, it's a closed record, but how can I get access to the material?
In Ancestry, search where again, ask where?
These right here are gonna be here at the archives.
Okay.
Right. So there are a lot of different hospital records. This is just one of them.
Okay.
So they won't let you search the record. Ask them, how can you get the material that you want? So they maybe have to do a search for you.
Okay.
It's like, if I wanted something from the census record, and they'll go back and find it, then I'll write to the Bureau of Census and ask them to find this person for me, because this just has not been released. So what they'll do, they'll search, and they'll send me a line with just my name on it, and everything they're talking about is blocked out because of the privacy issue. So hospital records are done the same way, as well as penitentiary records. So hospital records for Matt Hurst, they're going to give you the person's name, where they were from, did they die there, or did they recover, and all that information. So hospital records are great records, because sometimes you can't find a death record, but you can find it in a hospital record. They died in the hospital. Penitentiary records. I always search the penitentiary records. I found quite a few interesting things in the penitentiary records. All types of relatives. But it's just another source for my genealogy search. It's not me to say what someone did. I just want to find them, put them on that chart, and go on my next record, right?
And you didn't have to do anything in the old days to wind up in penitentiary. We did.
Right. You sure did. My father was sent to Parchman for forgery. My father couldn't even write his own name. So, property searches. So how do you locate an enslaved person? The enslaved person with property. There's one sure thing in life. So you want to search for their property, search for their property. So this is like a census of slavery right here. So you have to know, when you're doing genealogy, where the enslaved population is from. You see these purple lines right here? You see right down the coast here where the ships are coming in? Then they kind of scattered out over here, right? Because there are no ports here. The ports are all around here. And down to the port of New Orleans around here. So you actually need to know where these ships are coming in at. And then they are sold from these spots, then they're brought over to these territories. Genealogy is just a history lesson. So we were talking about earlier about the Emancipation Proclamation. And they only freed those enslaved persons who were in the states succeeded from the Union. So this chart right here tells you the states that succeeded. You see, Mississippi was the second state to succeed from the Union. The first one being South Carolina. So they in the green and the pink here. Then over here in the blue, these are free states. Over all in California. And then the yellow states here, these were the territories that were open to slavery, but not necessarily had slaves. They were open to it though. Don't just love maps. So, I just, for an example of how to find the records, I'm going to try to speed up a little bit because we don't have 10 minutes left. I used a record from Isaac Ross. Isaac Ross was a plantation on lots and lots of slaves. So let me get to the good part. On this record right here, you see that it says free person, free white person, 1. All these people around here are his enslaved people. He's living by himself. he died in 1836 in Jefferson County. Jefferson County has great records. The courthouse never burned. Oh, it's a great place to do research. So here, we know he had a lot of slaves, and he had a lot of property. So in his property, he's going to tell you where he wanted his property to go. So they had to do an inventory of his estate. In this inventory here, it's usually the names of the enslaved persons and their ages. And there were so many of them, they had to put them in lots because they were going to try and auction them off. His family wanted to sell the slaves. But he wanted his slaves to go back to Liberia. So it was a long court battle. Also, it has the property value. And we notice that men of a certain age and women of childbearing age, they were the most valuable. And then also they inventoried all the other items in his household because the family was really fighting on everybody wanted their piece of the pie. And I'm going to
Can you go back to
because
that?
this was John McGill. And I put him here because sometimes we forget that some plantation owners had more than one plantation. So here, John McGill, he has two plantations. He has one in Adams County and another in Claiborne County. And those are two of the oldest counties. The Adams being the oldest county. And I think Claiborne is maybe only 2 years 2 years older than Adams. And there were no courthouse fires in these two counties. You had to sell a slave, there was a lot of paperwork to go along with it. So when you're doing this research, there's also certain records you can look at that say the business of slaves and how to free a slave. There was laws on how to sell one and how you free one. You couldn't just say, I emancipate you. There was a process you had to go through. Another way to find your ancestry. To selling enslaved persons. And then in the 1940s, right after the Great Depression, the government had this works program trying to get people back to work. So it was called the Former Works Progress Administration, WPA. The WPA is wonderful because not only they would tell you if they sent research to each county, they wanted to know who lived there, what the churches were, what the schools were, what kind of crops are grown, and slave narratives. And where they would interview these former enslaved people. And then they would tell you who their master was, where they were from, how they get to where they are now, how they were treated. And it's just a slew of information that you don't know about until you actually read some of these narratives. And some of these narratives are online, and some are in book form. But the ones in Mississippi, they're here. Or you can go to the Library of Congress and find them as well.
What period of time was that gathered, that information?
The 40s. So if you just go on the archive website and you put in Works Progress Administration, you're going to have a whole slew of information coming up. And you have to choose your county. The most of these records there are on microfilm because the paper has been put away to preserve them. So I looked at one from Clay County, a man named Mr. Jim Allen. And Mr. Jim Allen, it was really interesting to read. And he talked about who his master was and how he was treated, how his family was treated, everything. And I really want to look at Jim Allen because in my family, they keep bringing up his name Allen a lot. And I found a connection to it. But it's always a middle name and a first name. The Freedmen's Bureau records. The Freedmen's Bureau records are online as well. They're here at the archives. The best records from those records, as the genealogical point goes, are the marriage records and the contracts. The contracts they had to, if you were gonna work for a former, planner, then you signed a contract. And in the contract, they listed everybody in the household and how they're supposed to be treated, what they're supposed to do. Then there's a lot of correspondence from the enslaved people, the freedmen to the government saying, I'm on this contract, and they're not holding up to it. And so they also had banks, freedmen's banks, and so the marriage records now, they're online here at the archives. So you can look those up too. Because a lot of times you may not find them in the actual marriage records, but you may find them in the freedmen's records. Because a lot of times people want to be, even though they were married, they wanted official records saying they were married. So that's just how the page looks if you're going to look for on the freedom index. You put the name in, you put the county in, or you put the planner name in. There's 3 ways you can search.
You search by first or last name, the other name, or you search by their first or last name, or either one.
You can do it by either one, but it's easier to do it by last name. And then think of what other last names they may have used. Like I use Coleman, but some of my Coleman, my channels are the same people. So some places they're Coleman, some places they're channels. And you'll get a list like this, and it's usually county, the planner's name. So here's the person name on this side of here. The age, the county, the planner, and plantation they were from. And I'll give you the date. This part of here, this is micro roll number. All this you can search by this going on called catalog and archives, and it will show you the libraries in there. It will help you pull that roll of film so you can search that record. What's that Port of New Orleans records? These records are now online. When we first started doing this record, they were all here. There was no index to them, and then there's an index to them, and you just go right. Port of New Orleans records go online, and then we can search it that way. So this is what actually the manuscript gonna look like. So this one was for James Hanna, and then the people he's purchasing, their age, their sex, and sometimes their color. So we using Dawes rolls. So like I said, we have a follow-up genealogy workshop talking about how to use the Dawes rolls. And so many times African Americans are sure they have Native American ancestry. But sometimes they don't keep in mind that if you were on the Dawes rolls, that you were not, you could have been probably an enslaved person. Because Native Americans held slaves as well. Yeah. So we look at the index, that's why you're going to see the word freedman. See, and they got to separate out the here, it says Choctaw freedman. Minor Choctaw freedman, that's the age of them, they're minors. So then you go down to newborn and all this, but then you want to look at the freedman list here. And it's going to give you the information that, so on the freedman list, it's going to tell you their name, their age, and the road the marker can go to after their census number. You can do this search online now. You may not get the entire record, but you get part of it. Then you can write to the archives or come to the archives, and the archives will do a search for you. They will do an hour search for you. They will actually reply back to you, then you decide, hey, do I need to come here and do some more research, or I need to write to that, can you do another hour's research, and this is what I want. Just remember when you write in the archives, or in the archives, be specific about what you want. So ask a question, don't send a narrative. They're only going to search for 1 hour. If you send me a whole 2 pages of narrative information, I spent 30 minutes of your research time reading your narrative. Now I still don't know what you want.
What kind of price is involved?
Pardon?
What's the cost?
There's no cost. The only cost, let me take it back. Let me tell you about it. There's a cost that defines information. And you pay for copies and postage. Okay. The search is free.
Okay.
Okay. So in the Dawes roll, I have to remind people to remember that this was not mandatory. So just because they're not listed on the Dawes Roll does not mean that they were not a freedmen from a Choctaw tribe or whatever tribe they were coming from. This was a voluntary list of people who wanted to go to Oklahoma to receive free land. And they wanted them to go to Oklahoma to normalize them to the culture of not being free to roam around. I'm choosing my words here.
What were those the five civilized tribes, what were they?
The five civilized tribes were Chickasaw, Choctaw, Cherokee, Seminole, and I can't really think of the other one right now.
Weren't they all civilized, or just a name that was given by, somebody that wasn't civilized?
Civilized was just a term that was used because they wanted them to go and live in actual houses and commingle and operate as their normal Caucasian person would.
But those were the tribes here in Mississippi.
That was just five in Mississippi. And those are the five major ones. There were lots of smaller ones in Mississippi that still are.
Okay.
That's just the hospital, the library of East Mississippi. I just thought it was a cute thing to throw in there. You know, I'm a librarian, you know. That's not my fault. So a lot of times we're like, where did our ancestors go? If I was like, they went to Chicago. They went to Chicago. There were other places they went to, y'all. It wasn't just Chicago.
St. Louis, Memphis,
Baltimore,
Detroit.
yeah, all kinds of places. They did not all go to Chicago.
A lot of them did though.
A lot of them did, yeah.
Can you go back?
So then as the years go on,
Can
pardon?
you go back one
Oh,
slide?
I sure will.
Okay.
Okay. So as the years go along, we talk about the Great Depression, and we still have African Americans migrating to other parts. So now we're going to Chicago, along the East Coast here. Look at this. We don't went to Texas, now we're going to West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to look at the time period that you're looking at. Okay, so I hope this workshop opens more doors for you and add branches to your genealogical tree. Just remember, ancestor hunting is a lifelong event. You're not going to find everything in the first 2 or 3 months. If you do, you're an exception to the rule. Keep your eyes on new resources and keep asking questions. Please take time to interview your older relatives, because we know all the family records. They know all the family records, and all the family records are not written down. So you have to keep those in mind. All right. So remember, county records. County records include your marriage records, your probate records, your will records, your deed records. Then you have your state records. You have state census records. You have hospital records, especially they're run by the state, like Parchman. No, who did I say that? The state penitentiary at Parchman. Because I often tell people don't say Parchman, because Parchman is a town. The state penitentiary is in Parchman. Like the state mental hospital is in Whitfield. Whitfield is not the location, that's just a town. I have to correct myself all the time about that. Because we hear it all the time, right? So you want to get all these records, because it doesn't matter where you find them. I found some relatives in the state hospital, and I remember I was doing a workshop up in Euphoria, and it was a African American workshop, and there were no African Americans there. But I went on with the program. I just changed it up some, you know. And there's this really elderly lady. She was maybe in her 80s. She was walking on the cane, and she was coming up to the front. And I thought maybe she was going out the door, but she kept walking. I'm like, oh, what's she doing? You know. So she walked up to the screen, and she took her cane. She tapped the screen. She said, "I've been looking for you." She found her great grandmother, and her family told her that the grandmother when she was in her 30s. But truthfully, the truth is that she had a mental problem, and they put her in hospital, and they didn't want to be had that stigma
Right.
that she was in a mental hospital, so they told her that she died. You know, so now she has actual record of what happened to her, and that record also told her when she was admitted, why she was admitted, and was she released or did she die there? And she died, they gave the date. So that's another record of finding when a person passed away. So like I meant to say, when even the cemetery records, if you go to the cemetery and you find this nice glossy tombstone, that should give you pause right there, especially if they died in 1890. They wouldn't have a glossy tombstone with it. So they may have been replaced, or they may not just get one. And they may not have found an official record when that person died, but they went by recollection of when the person died. So at least you have something. But just keep in mind that a lot of times you have all the tombstones, they may not be the actual tombstone, or they may have been replaced, or it may just be their first tombstone with information that people recalled, that they didn't actually verify. Tombstones are notorious for being wrong. I go to mine all the time, like, oh, that is not right. My son like, come on, girl, come on. I'm like, you know she did that. Girl, come on here. I'm like, y'all want to erase that off there. But you know you can't be messing with people's records, right? Even with the tombstone record. So like I said, if you have questions, I always contact the archives. They have librarians on duty every day. If you come into the archive, they have librarians on duty. Now, they sitting at the desk. They're waiting for you to come ask a question. If you don't ask a question, they may be sitting there waiting for you to come. They don't know you have a question. So, act like Joyce. Excuse me, I know you're reading, but can you fix this? Can you help me right here? You know, that was one of the things I did a lot when I was working in the archives, you know. I can't just stand sitting anywhere. I'm going to go and ask you, are you sure you're looking for that right thing? And a lot of times, if you don't ask a question, you may be looking in the wrong spot. Because you're going on what somebody else told you. Yes, sir.
Is there a similar book that you can recommend that would also be helpful in doing this kind of work?
You know, there are several, but the one that comes in mind that I've used for years is written by Tony, I think Tony Burrows. It's called Black Roots.
Okay.
And I'm sure he's done several since then. But he has examples of all these records I'm just talking about.
Okay.
And remember, when you go to other states records may not be called the same thing. So their process is different. Some archives or historical commission will do research for you, and some of them won't. So you won't know to actually go there. Okay. Now archives, that's one of the things that we always do research. And for written research, when people come in and do research, some archives are different. So you don't know to actually contact them to see what they're gonna do. Or you won't know when their birth and death at the start, and people actually do the research and find out. Okay, so but you can't look for a record and you can't find it. The question should be, why I can't find this? Did the record burn? Am I looking in the wrong time period? Am I looking at the wrong type of record? You know, is this record open? If you can't find it for yourself, call the archives and ask them. And there's nothing wrong with being in the archives and I ask you a question and you're hesitant. Excuse me, but where can I find this record right here? Because that person may not know how to find the record, but someone else may know how to do it. Okay, so if you get questions and you get answers that you don't really understand, and you may say, "Is there someone who specializes in this?" You know, and that's we do it a lot here at the archives. You know, there's someone who may specialize in doing Confederate records. There's someone who may specialize in how to do answers and all this kind of stuff right here. And the other people who know how to do this record. I always ask, is there someone that specializes in this? And they may point you to, and another person may come out and say, how can I help you? Okay? Because when I first started with the archives, I was the only African American in the search room. And so people, some people come to me to help if they were African American. And some African Americans wouldn't come to me because they thought the other person would know more. You know? So it's a double sword, either way you go. But the thing is to keep asking questions, keep searching. If you run into, don't let yourself go down the rabbit hole. You're taking secondhand information and you're trying to search it. Verify it. If you can't verify it, then you need to put a question mark around and highlight it. Let me come back to this because this is not. Because you'll be searching for someone, you search for years, and end up that person's not your relative. Okay? So someone gives you a book of information, verify for yourself. Okay? Don't just go by, it's the Bible. There's no such thing become genealogy. So verify everything you find, and then keep on going. If someone doesn't know the answer to your question, ask someone else. If people are hesitant and they think you're being nosy or whatever, it's a genealogist's line. Ask someone else. Then sometimes, once they realize what you were doing, they may actually come back to you and say, oh yeah, I know about his mother. Because ain't she used to live next door to us. See, they thought you were just being messy and you asked information that don't belong to you. But once they realize that you're actually doing a family genealogy tree, they want help. Because now they involved, they may want to, can I get a copy of that? Be careful about that too. Yeah. So also Ancestry, if you find some information on Ancestry, they link you to another person, they said this is not your relative, verify it. I just had a friend of mine, I was doing some research for her, and after about 2 weeks, she said, Joyce, stop doing that research. I said, why? She said, my dad is not my dad. So I was searching for someone who was not her dad. She said, because someone contacted her, they found her name on Ancestry and said, I think you are my sister or my aunt. You're related to me somehow. So after talking to her for a while, she went home and asked her mom, and her mom said, well, yeah, it's probably right. This is probably right, So they did DNA and found out that she was being the only child to have 11 siblings. If that one family secret had been going on for years, and had the people from doing 18 years had not contacted her, she would have never known. She would have thought this was her dad all her life. And she said, I was wondering why I was the only child. And my dad said, he used to say, I don't know why, you're the only child we had. And come to find out that he didn't have any children at all. And her mother had a relationship with someone else and got with him, So she wasn't actually sure, which father it was. So naturally, she was married to this man. If you marry this person, then legally that's your child. So there's always reasons for all this. And sometimes you just don't want people to know your is. Okay? Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
What's the best place to start? In the county? In your county?
The best place is, okay, let me ask her first question she had first.
Is there a difference between a state census and a federal census?
Yes, ma'am. A federal census is taken by the government for a specific reason. So, the federal census, they count the people of the United States, and then they say that's the government record. They have to know how many people in the United States, how many in the state, and all these counties. So that's how taxes and everything are distributed out. Okay. State census records are done the same way. They ask different questions because they're done by the Secretary of State, and they have specific reasons why they need to know this information. So like Mississippi, the last one that I know of done was 1880. Yeah. And so I also did 1880 Elder Children's School record with that record when they were doing that. And that's the only one that have Elder Children hooked on to is 1880.
1880, okay.
But there are some for the 1890s, up to, especially that Mississippi and the other states don't have 1890 census, but they have an Elder Children record. So you might not find the census record, but in 1892, the Elder Children's School record, you may find them there because it's going to list at least one of the parents. Sometimes both parents, at least one of the parents, and the children are school age. So anytime you find a record, like even though you don't think your record is going to be there, you need to search it anyway. And be aware of different spellings. Spellings, it means nothing. It's all of what you hear. Okay. And tell me what was the question again?
No, I was just asking, what would be the best place to start? Would be in your county, at the courthouse, instead of running up here?
I wouldn't go to the courthouse first, because courthouses are very understaffed. There's no one there, and most of them, there's no one there to help you. Most of the early records are gonna be here. And most of them you can, look at online, unless some cameras are marketing, you have to come to the archives and do that, or write to the archives. It'll save you so much, trouble if you just do it here. That's why I said archives, it's kind of like one-stop shop. Like you can get, if you write to the Department of Health and you say, hey, I want a death certificate, and this person died in, say, 1930, then you're gonna pay the full price of a death certificate, right? But if you come here, then you may pay, is it 25 cents? I think it's 25 cents for a copy. Yeah, isn't that better? Because you don't have to have a certified copy. You just want that piece of paper with the information on, right? So you don't say this all this information, and if you go to Department of Health, they're only gonna say they certain a valuable time period. Say, this person born, you say they were born 1930. I'm sorry, they died in 1930. And they go check 1930. They go check 2 years prior and 2 years after that date. That's 5 years. If you come to the archives, or write to the archive, then you can say, I think they were born in the 1930s. So they know to search the 30s. So you got the whole time period there. You know, right? And then they'll write you back saying, okay, we found this person. It's gonna cost you $2.50 to get a copy of it, because it's postage. And that's still a lot better than paying $15. Right. So get the information from, and start at home first. Write out what you want to find. I always, when you come to anywhere, I always write down what the purpose of this visit is. What I'm looking for today. So do you want to come here and say, I'm just looking for my, and it happens a lot. I'm just looking for my relative, and they were born in the 60s. They were born in the 20s. When? They were born in the 1800s. That's the whole 100 years there. And you narrow that down a little bit. What race were they? I know when I first started working in the archive, I asked someone on the phone, and I said, what race are they? And the whole room got quiet. And so my supervisor came, she said, why did you ask that question? I said, because how am I supposed to know who to look for if I don't know what race they are? What if I get 2 John Smiths and there's a black one and a white one? How am I supposed to know which one is which? I can't see a person's race through the phone. Right? So you need to be specific. I want you to look for John Smith. He was born in this county. He was this age. He has some brothers and sisters, and throw some of the names out in there. You know who you're married to. Give us information, but ask a question. Don't do a narrative. Because a lot of times you get the information you already have. Because the person doing the research don't know, because you didn't ask a question. Because we got plenty of letters back that said, I knew already all this, but you didn't ask us anything. So we circulated an hour and we sent you what we had. And you have all this information, you wasted your time, you're right, because you didn't ask a question. Right? So ask that question and be specific. Okay. It's, like I said, start at home. Find out what you say. I'm going to the archives. I'm looking at my grandfather. He was born this date. He was born in this county. These were his brothers and sisters. And I think he got married this time period right here. If you don't know the county, just put the town in there. So they're going to look at that county, then they'll check the next county around. Because I didn't mention marriage record. That's another state record that's held by the county, and at a certain time then it was sent over to the state. Okay, so the archives has this record called it's a statewide marriage sound index. Marriage was prior to 1926. There's a white index and there's an African American index. The African American index is like this big. The white one is like this big. Then you said, didn't you? Okay. The reason why? Because on the African American one, there are a lot of white marriage records in it. And on the card, they'll say white. But if you didn't know that, you wouldn't know to look up at which one. So you looked in the white index, you can find them. Because that card got mixed up in the black index. So you're going to go and search them over there. And if you find them on the card, it's going to tell you what county they were married in, the date, the groom's name, the bride's name, and who the official was. What book number and page number to go to the record. I love the marriage sound index. Because if you don't know what county, do the marriage sound index. It's in alphabetical order to come to the groom's first name. So it's on sound it. So my dad's name is Lawson. So you're gonna eliminate the silent letters. So Lawson would be L250. That's a W there, right? A W is silent. So I'm only gonna code the L, I'm bring down L. I'm going to the S, it's a 2, and the N is a 5. I need another number, so I add a 0. Because you gotta have 3 numbers. So you're gonna find, I'm gonna now, I got this code. I'm gonna look for him by his first name. I'm gonna go right down to Roy. I'm not gonna worry about all the other names. I'm strictly, I don't care what the last name, I'm gonna go straight to the person's first name, the groom's first name. Then once I find the groom's first name, then I'm start looking for the right bride. And then if I find it's gonna tell me exactly where to go. Page number, book number, date, and everything. So I always try to vary sound X. And once you start using the sound X, it's really easy. Just remember, you don't code vowels, those are silent letters, and you don't code a double consonant. Because remember, when you hear address, you don't hear 2 S and 2. You hear 1. The other one is silent. And then the library will show you how to do it. Or you can look it up. If you just say how to use the sound X. Online, they show you how to use the sound X. I've been so often in one place, people talking on sound X and their name like, it's not, it's habit. You know, they talking to me, I'm trying to say, that's L350, you know. Half is on the job. You know, it's not my fault, I've been here too many years, right? When you do something for 30-some years, you just do it automatically, you don't think about it. So, just come here or call the archives and ask them a question. Okay?
So
Don't just wonder.
Sound, is it?
Man,
What's that called?
it's how the sound is.
Sound it. Okay.
So the things are indexed where they sound rather than how they're spelled. Because that's why I say when the people with that green with the E on the end, the E is silent anyway, so the code's still gonna be G650. It's not gonna be, that's all it's gonna be. You know, I don't care if you got 12 E's and the code is still the same. Because you can't code E anyway. Okay? Alright. Anyone else?
Thank you, Miss.
Ladies, you all have a couple here? You all set to do genealogy? Some of y'all already started that one. Okay. So just keep in mind, the next one is going to be March, I think it's March 25th. If not, because my days go, I got so many things going on in March, but I think it's March 25th. It will be on our website. And you'll get a listing of when it's going to happen. And we're going to talk about county records, state records, and why they're important. Then the next one will be how to use the Dawes rolls. The Dawes rolls not the only Native American resource we have, but it's the one that's used by the majority. Even today, if you're trying to prove you have a Native American ancestry, you can do a DNA and it'll tell you, oh, you got this 10%. See, it doesn't tell you a tribe or anything, right? You have to go to the Dawes rolls and find your ancestry. You got to do genealogy all over again. You got to find that ancestry on the Dawes rolls. But to go to a tribe and say, I want to be a member because my ancestor is on the Dawes rolls. Okay.
And those, I want everybody to know that videos, these presentations will be on YouTube too.
Yes.
So if you want to go back and look at the presentation.
Yes.
On the MDAH page, Mississippi Department of Archives and History, MDAH.
Right.
Oh, and it's Muskogee.
It's what?
Muskogee, that's the other tribe.
Yeah, okay. I was like, I know what, I guess because, my family I found were Choctaw and Chickasaw. Did I mention Creek?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So, and so I forget about the other because I haven't found any relatives from them yet. Okay. So, now just because you don't find your family on the Dawes rolls does not mean they were not Native American. It just means your ancestors did not sign to be on the Dawes rolls, or they were from another tribe, and the 5 civilized tribes are not the only tribes in Mississippi. Okay? We have the Armstrong rolls that you can look at, the English rolls, as well as the Dawes rolls. In the 1870 census, which is again the first census, so index everyone. If you go to the index, the book index, and open it up, and you go to I, you go to Indian, and they have names right there, the whole section right there. That's the only one I've seen done like that. But it does identify them as Native American.
And is the Dawes Roll specific to Mississippi?
No.
Okay, so it's everybody. Okay.
Right. Right. So that's when you see it on the index, you will see some other places that are not Mississippi, but they signed up for Dawes Rolls. Then once you get the census record, the actual census number, you look at the actual record, it's going to give you all the family members' names that they plan on taking with them. Then it's going to ask them about the parents' names, where they're living or deceased, the ages, and where they're from. And if you're lucky, you'll get one that says rejected and then accepted, because they wrote to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and said they won't let me do this because they said I'm not a Native American. And they sent all the information to the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Yes, all that correspondence comes with the Dawes Rolls. And they're gonna say, okay, this person was denied at first, and now they accepted. And so why were they denied? They may be, first may say they were intermarried white. And so they had to fight to be a part of the Dawes Rolls. Or they were freedmen, and then there's a whole different story. When you get a chance, read about African Americans after 1900. When they actually got to Oklahoma, there was another battle going on, because a lot of the Native Americans didn't want the African Americans to have the land because they were not Native American. So there's another whole slew of information about that. Then you're going to have some Caucasians who are coming in. They want part of the land too. So that information is going to be part of the Dawes Rolls. So it's a continuing series of information, not just part of we talk about here, getting out of Mississippi, going to Oklahoma. It's once you get to Oklahoma, that's another whole set of information that you might want to find out about. Okay? All right. So thank you all so much. I appreciate y'all coming on this Saturday morning. The sun is shining.